The greatest spiritual teachers throughout history have shown us that consciousness exists beyond mere circumstance. It creates, shapes, and transforms reality itself. When we contemplate why Jesus chose to experience pain, we must first recognize that this was no accident of history or mere consequence of his teachings. It was a deliberate, conscious choice made from the highest spiritual understanding. In the vast ocean of universal consciousness, the incarnation of divine awareness into physical form represents perhaps the most profound mystery we can contemplate. The Christ consciousness, that perfect union of divine and human, didn't stumble into suffering by mistake. What appears as tragedy from our limited human perspective was, in truth, a carefully orchestrated spiritual technology designed to transform human consciousness at its deepest level. Consider the Garden of Gethsemane, where Jesus prayed, "Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me, yet not my will, but yours be done." This profound moment reveals the conscious nature of his choice. He could have walked away, his human self desired to, yet something deeper, something connected to the cosmic purpose of his incarnation, guided him forward into what appeared as darkness, but was actually profound light. The mystery deepens when we realize that pain itself was not the goal, but rather the vehicle. Pain, in its purest spiritual understanding, serves as a catalyst for awakening. Just as pressure transforms coal into diamonds, the conscious choice to experience suffering can transmute human consciousness into something transcendent. Jesus understood this alchemical process at a level few have fully comprehended. Edgar, in his remarkable readings, spoke of how higher consciousness beings sometimes choose difficult paths, not as punishment, but as opportunities for profound service. The soul, in its infinite wisdom, recognizes that certain transformations within collective consciousness can only occur through direct experience. The physical sensations of pain become the doorway through which spiritual truths enter the material world. What makes this mystery so compelling is that it challenges our fundamental understanding of suffering itself. We typically view pain as something to avoid at all costs, as evidence of something gone wrong. Yet the conscious choice of Jesus reveals a higher perspective, that sometimes the soul deliberately walks into difficulty because it recognizes the transformative potential hidden within that experience. This doesn't glorify suffering for its own sake. Rather, it illuminates the profound understanding that conscious beings sometimes choose challenging paths precisely because these paths create the necessary conditions for spiritual awakening. The vibrational frequency of pain, when transmuted through divine consciousness, creates ripples throughout the collective field that could not be achieved through any other means. The mystery of this conscious choice invites us to reconsider our own relationship with life's challenges. Perhaps what appears as misfortune in our lives might sometimes be the soul's deliberate choice, not because it desires suffering, but because it recognizes the transformative potential hidden within difficult experiences. When we contemplate Jesus on the cross declaring, "It is finished," we glimpse a profound truth, that his experience wasn't a passive submission to external forces, but the completion of a cosmic mission undertaken with full awareness. The mystery isn't why a loving God would allow suffering, but rather why a divine consciousness would deliberately choose to experience it as a vehicle for humanity's transformation. This perspective transforms our understanding of spiritual evolution itself. The conscious choice to experience pain, made from the highest awareness, reveals that some spiritual truths can only be anchored into physical reality through direct embodied experience. Words, teachings, and parables could only go so far. The full transmission of divine love required something more profound, the willingness to experience humanity's deepest shadows while maintaining perfect connection to the light. Beyond words, beyond teachings, beyond intellectual understanding, there exists a universal language that speaks directly to the deepest parts of our being. This is the language of felt experience, the communication that occurs when consciousness encounters itself through sensation. When we explore why Jesus chose pain, we discover that suffering served as a direct communication channel between the divine and humanity, bypassing the limitations of words and doctrines. Pain speaks a language that the intellect alone cannot comprehend. While teachings may inspire the mind, direct experience transforms the entire being. Jesus understood that to communicate the full depth of divine love to humanity, he needed to speak in a language that would resonate beyond mental understanding. He needed to communicate through the body, the emotions, the very fabric of human experience itself. Throughout spiritual traditions, we find this understanding that certain truths can only be transmitted through direct experience. The Buddhist concept of dukkha, suffering, isn't merely a philosophical idea, but a recognition that the experience of suffering itself becomes the doorway to liberation. Similarly, Jesus recognized that the most profound spiritual transmission wouldn't come through his parables alone, but through his willingness to fully embody the human experience in all its dimensions, including its darkest aspects. The crucifixion, viewed through this lens, becomes a profound spiritual technology, a direct communication to the collective soul of humanity that bypasses intellectual filters and speaks directly to our deepest knowing. When Jesus declared, "Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends," he wasn't merely stating a principle, he was demonstrating a vibrational truth that would resonate throughout human consciousness for millennia. This language of pain carries frequencies that words alone cannot convey. The willingness to suffer for love communicates something to the soul that transcends all doctrine and dogma. It speaks directly to our understanding of what it means to be fully human and fully divine simultaneously. This is why the image of Christ's suffering continues to resonate so deeply across cultures and time. It speaks a universal language that requires no translation. Consider how different this is from mere intellectual teaching. One might intellectually understand the concept of sacrificial love, but witnessing it, embodied, feeling the emotional resonance of such a choice, communicates at a level beyond thought. The cells of our body respond. Our heart recognizes something our mind might miss. This is communication at the level of being, rather than thinking. When we truly grasp this perspective, we understand that Jesus wasn't merely enduring pain, he was speaking through it. Each moment of his passion communicated volumes about the nature of divine love, the relationship between spirit and matter, and the transformative potential hidden within our most challenging experiences. This wasn't passive suffering, but active communication through the language of direct experience. Throughout history, mystics have recognized this principle. They understand that certain spiritual truths cannot be adequately conveyed through words alone. This is why contemplative practices often involve physical disciplines. The body itself becomes the vessel for direct knowing. Jesus exemplified this understanding at the highest level, recognizing that to truly communicate the depth of divine love, he needed to speak through every dimension of human experience. The implications of this understanding are profound. It suggests that our own painful experiences might sometimes serve as the soul's attempt to communicate with us directly, bypassing our mental constructs and speaking to our deepest knowing. Pain becomes not merely something to endure or escape, but potentially a communication channel through which deeper understanding can emerge. This perspective transforms how we might approach suffering, both that of Jesus and our own. Rather than asking, "Why must there be pain?" we might instead ask, "What is being communicated through this experience?" This shift doesn't diminish the reality of suffering, but rather invites us to recognize its potential as a vehicle for direct knowing. Jesus chose pain as a language because it speaks directly to the core of human experience. Through his willingness to fully embrace this language, he established a communication channel with humanity that transcends time, culture, and intellectual barriers. The resonance of his choice continues to speak to souls across millennia, not because we intellectually grasp every theological implication, but because something within us recognizes the profound truth that was communicated through his experience. In essence, Jesus chose to speak the most universal language known to human consciousness, the language of embodied experience. Through this choice, he ensured that his message would not be limited to those who could access and understand complex theological concepts, but would be available to any heart capable of recognizing love expressed through sacrifice. The concept of karma, the universal principle that actions create corresponding effects, operates not just on an individual level, but across the collective consciousness of humanity. When we examine why Jesus chose to experience pain, we discover a profound truth. His sacrifice, created a fundamental shift in the collective karmic field of humanity, opening pathways for spiritual liberation that transcend individual effort. To understand this dynamic, we must first recognize that consciousness exists as an interconnected field. No soul stands truly separate from the whole. The actions, thoughts, and experiences of each being create ripples throughout this unified field, affecting the collective in ways both seen and unseen. Jesus, operating from the highest level of spiritual awareness, understood that humanity carried accumulated karmic patterns that limited its evolution, patterns of separation, fear, judgment, and spiritual blindness that could not be transcended through ordinary means. The remarkable truth revealed through deeper spiritual understanding is that conscious suffering, freely chosen from a place of love, creates a different kind of karmic imprint than suffering that arises from ignorance or resistance. When a highly evolved consciousness deliberately chooses to experience pain while maintaining complete awareness and love, it generates a transformative energy that can actually dissolve accumulated karmic debt within the collective field. This understanding illuminates why Jesus declared, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." His path of conscious sacrifice literally created an energetic pathway, a vibrational template that altered the karmic trajectory of humanity. By willingly taking on suffering that he could have avoided, while maintaining perfect communion with divine love, he established what mystics might call a karmic dispensation, a release valve for the accumulated spiritual debts of humanity. The crucifixion, viewed through this lens, becomes a cosmic event with implications far beyond its historical moment. By consciously experiencing the full weight of human suffering while maintaining perfect connection to divine love, Jesus created an energetic bridge between humanity's darkest karmic patterns and the liberating frequencies of divine grace. This bridge exists outside linear time, accessible to any soul who turns toward it with sincere seeking. In the profound readings of Edgar, we find reference to this understanding, that the Christ consciousness created a vibrational pathway that remains active within the collective field, continuously offering the potential for karmic liberation. This isn't about bypassing personal responsibility or avoiding necessary lessons. Rather, it's about recognizing that the conscious sacrifice of Jesus altered the very fabric of humanity's collective karma, making certain transformations more accessible than they would otherwise be. Consider the concept of sacrifice in its true spiritual meaning, not as punishment or loss, but as the sacred act of making something holy through conscious offering. The word sacrifice comes from roots meaning to make sacred. Why? Through his willing sacrifice, Jesus literally made sacred the experience of human suffering, transforming it from a karmic burden into a potential pathway to liberation. This transformation remains active within the collective field, available to all who seek it. This perspective helps explain why Jesus emphasized forgiveness so strongly in his teachings. Forgiveness is the conscious release of karmic debt, the recognition that holding others bound by their transgressions keeps us all trapped in cycles of cause and effect. Through his ultimate act of forgiveness, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do," spoken from the cross itself, Jesus demonstrated the power to break karmic cycles at their root. The ripple effects of this karmic transformation continue to expand throughout human consciousness. Each soul that awakens to this understanding and aligns with the Christ frequency of unconditional love contributes to the ongoing liberation of the collective. This is why mystics throughout the ages have recognized that connecting with the Christ consciousness isn't merely about personal salvation, but about participating in the redemption of all creation. What makes this understanding so powerful is that it transcends dogmatic interpretations of Jesus' sacrifice. It reveals that the essence of his mission wasn't to satisfy divine wrath or fulfill religious requirements, but to create an actual energetic shift within the collective field of human consciousness, a shift that makes liberation more accessible to all beings. This shift operates beyond the constraints of specific religious beliefs, available to any soul that recognizes and aligns with its frequency. The karmic impact of Jesus' conscious choice continues to unfold across time. Each moment of genuine forgiveness, each act of compassion that transcends judgment, each recognition of our essential oneness, all these resonate with and amplify the vibrational pattern he established. This is how one being's conscious choice to experience pain created ripples that continue to transform the collective karma of humanity. Understanding this dimension of Jesus' choice invites us to recognize our own participation in collective transformation. When we consciously choose love in the face of difficulty, when we forgive rather than perpetuate cycles of blame, when we recognize divine presence even in challenging circumstances, we align with and strengthen the karmic liberation that Christ consciousness made available to all humanity. This perspective reveals that the question, why did Jesus choose pain, finds its answer not just in historical or theological contexts, but in the ongoing energetic reality of collective consciousness. His choice continues to offer humanity a pathway beyond karmic limitation, a pathway that remains as vibrant and accessible today as it was 2,000 years ago, for it exists in the eternal now of spiritual reality. The most profound spiritual teaching that emerges from Jesus' conscious choice to experience pain is the revelation that suffering, when approached with awareness, becomes not merely an obstacle to overcome, but a catalyst for profound transformation. Throughout human history, pain has been viewed primarily as something to avoid, an unwelcome intruder in our pursuit of happiness. Yet Jesus demonstrated a revolutionary perspective, that suffering, when consciously embraced rather than resisted, can become the very doorway to spiritual awakening. This understanding fundamentally redefines our relationship with difficulty. The conventional human approach to pain involves resistance. We struggle against it, try to escape it, or become consumed by it. Jesus showed a different way. By willingly entering into suffering while maintaining perfect alignment with divine love, he demonstrated that pain does not need to diminish our connection to the sacred. It can actually deepen it. This perspective transforms suffering from meaningless torment into a sacred technology for spiritual evolution. Take up your cross and follow me, Jesus taught. This statement reveals a profound truth, that there exists a way of approaching suffering that transforms it from a burden into a pathway. The cross, a symbol of torture and execution, becomes in Christ's hands a symbol of transformation and transcendence. This alchemical shift occurs not through avoiding pain, but through bringing a higher quality of consciousness to the experience itself. This understanding illuminates why many of the world's greatest spiritual advancements have emerged from periods of tremendous challenge. The soul's capacity for resilience, its ability to maintain connection to light even in darkness, represents perhaps the greatest potential for spiritual growth. Jesus didn't merely endure suffering, he demonstrated the possibility of remaining fully present to pain while simultaneously holding the vibration of perfect love. This combination creates the conditions for profound transformation. When we fully grasp this teaching, we recognize that Jesus wasn't glorifying suffering for its own sake. Rather, he was revealing the transformative potential hidden within our most challenging experiences. Pain, when approached with conscious awareness rather than resistance, becomes the catalyst for expansions of consciousness that might not be possible through any other means. The pressure that would crush coal into dust instead creates diamonds when the proper conditions are present. Consider how this understanding might transform our approach to life's inevitable challenges. Rather than asking, "Why is this happening to me?" we might instead inquire, "How is this experience inviting me to grow? What greater awareness is trying to emerge through this difficulty?" This shift doesn't diminish the reality of suffering, but it reveals the possibility of finding meaning and purpose even in our darkest moments. Jesus demonstrated that the true measure of spiritual maturity isn't found in the absence of challenges, but in how we respond to them. Do we contract in fear and resentment, or do we expand into greater love and awareness? Do we become hardened and closed by difficulty, or do we allow it to open us to deeper compassion? These choices determine whether suffering becomes a dead end or a doorway to transformation. The crucifixion itself becomes the ultimate demonstration of this principle. What appeared as defeat from the perspective of ordinary consciousness was revealed as the doorway to resurrection, the transformation of death itself into new life. This pattern of death and rebirth of surrender leading to transformation, represents the core spiritual technology that Jesus embodied and offered to humanity. This perspective also illuminates why Jesus taught that the last shall be first, and the first shall be last. Those who have navigated the depths of human suffering while maintaining spiritual connection often develop capacities for compassion and wisdom that remain inaccessible to those who have not faced similar challenges. The wounds that might have destroyed us instead become the openings through which greater light can enter and shine forth. Throughout history, the most profound spiritual teachers have echoed this understanding. They recognize that awakening doesn't come through escape from the human condition, but through full immersion in it, allowing even its most challenging aspects to become doorways to greater awareness. Jesus didn't transcend humanity by avoiding its difficulties. He transformed humanity by fully embracing them while maintaining perfect union with divine love. This teaching offers profound hope in the face of life's inevitable challenges. It suggests that nothing we experience is inherently meaningless or wasted, that even our deepest wounds carry the potential for transformation when approached with consciousness and love. The suffering that seems to break us open can actually break us open to greater dimensions of being, if we learn to approach it as Jesus did. The resurrection that followed crucifixion demonstrates the ultimate fulfillment of this principle. What appeared as ending revealed itself as beginning. What seemed like destruction became the foundation for new creation. This pattern reveals the deepest truth about consciously chosen suffering, that it serves not as final defeat, but as the necessary passage to greater life. As we integrate this understanding, we discover that Jesus' choice to experience pain wasn't merely a historical event, but an eternal teaching about the nature of consciousness itself. The capacity to remain present to difficulty without being diminished by it, to maintain connection to love even in darkness, represents the highest potential of human awareness. Through his example, Jesus didn't just endure suffering, he transformed our understanding of it. This perspective invites us to approach our own challenges differently, not with resignation or resistance, but with the awareness that even our darkest moments carry seeds of transformation. The question shifts from why must there be suffering to how might this difficulty be serving my awakening? This isn't spiritual bypassing or denial of pain, but rather the recognition of its potential role in our evolution. In essence, Jesus revealed that pain, consciously embraced, becomes not the enemy of spiritual awakening, but potentially its most powerful catalyst. This understanding doesn't glorify suffering, but rather illuminates the soul's remarkable capacity to transform even the most challenging experiences into doorways to greater awareness, compassion, and love. If these teachings have touched your soul and awakened something within you, don't let this moment pass. Subscribe now to continue this journey of spiritual discovery together. Each insight shared creates ripples in our collective consciousness. Leave a comment below sharing how this perspective on Christ's conscious choice has transformed your understanding of suffering in your own life. Your voice matters in this spiritual community. Remember, transformation happens not just through listening, but through engagement and practice. Subscribe, comment, and let's walk this path of awakening together.